Everybody, welcome back with the Purplatypus's name. Today we're going to be talking about the best mid-game archetypes, in my opinion, from the perspective of someone who's been playing this game on hard mode and has been breezing through it with no problems. So if you've been struggling in the mid-game, this could be a good video for you. First, before we jump into it, no call to action. I don't care. Do that stuff if you want. If you want to watch this video, there's likely going to be spoilers. I don't know how to avoid them. If you're not as far as I am if you're not to the late game yet, there's going to be some spoilers. I'm not going to talk about spoilers, but visually you might see characters that are different than you remember. You might see different characters that you didn't know were party members. You might see archetypes that are not readily available to you. Okay. So here's an official spoiler warning. Okay. But besides that, we are going to jump into it. You are now on your own. You are now risking yourself if you don't want any spoilers. I don't think it's gonna. I think it'll be fine. I think you'll be happy. But anyway, let's jump into it. The very first archetype I want to talk about is the wizard. So let us talk about the wizard here. So in my very first video, I talked about the mage. And in the early game, the mage is really good. But they have no downsides. No, the mage is good, but once you get a little bit further in, the wizard is one that I want to highlight here. The wizard is just the mage, but better. The most important thing here about the mage is, yeah, they have good coverage and stuff, but they actually get arcane unity, increases the strength and hit rate of synthesis. Synthesis, if you can exploit a weakness, becomes incredibly powerful. Also, they have very good synthesis skills in general. However, you will need to run either like a mage, mass dancer, healer. Like, you'll need to kind of decide what teammates you want to run if you actually want to utilize that. But shield blessing is very good. Arcane unity is very good. You also are going to have all the skills from the mage, so you can bring over magic circle as well. Very powerful in general. But the good thing about the mage also is that they just have a really good magic stat. And with a really good magic stat, you could bring over really powerful things like Frigid Frost Tactic from the commander, heavy ice damage. You could bring over, I mean, what's something else you get in the mid game here? You know, you get the thief relatively early. You could bring dark magic over. You get the cleric. You could bring light magic over, right? So they have the best magic stat out of all the characters, especially in the mid game, and you basically get to just get all the abilities, cover your weaknesses, and if you don't need to get a bunch of weaknesses, you could just fill up their slots with things like you know, more passives to increase the damage and things like that. And overall, their passives are pretty good, and of course they have the magic recovery hero passive, which is very good for nearly the whole game. It's not as good at the end game because it gets kind of replaced by a different archetype, but still it is pretty darn good. Only other thing there is that you want to know is that this is Gallica's like archetype, and so you're not going to get the final versions until way later in the game. You're going to unlock the wizard quite a bit earlier, and so you're going to be kind of stuck with the wizard for a while. And even though you can get the wizard relatively early, you're not going to get the other stuff until, you know, dozens of hours after. So the wizard does kind of fall off in the late game, but not entirely. I mean, I still use the wizard all the time, honestly, but now I've kind of moved. I've kind of upgraded. Another one I want to point out here that is not one of the good ones, it is one of the bad ones actually, is the merchant. Super falls off in damage. They just don't do that much, and they don't have that much support. You could bring support over, but you can't upgrade to the tycoon until way later in the game. So until actually where I got to, about 70 hours in, that's about where you're going to have to be to switch over, at least, you know, the last stretch of the game. So this is not, I just want to highlight that in my last video, I put the merchant is really good, and I think the merchant is really good, but this is an overworld combat character. They do good damage in the overworld. They do, you get a bunch of money, and they have some almighty attacks, but the damage is just so low that, and they don't get any offensive stats, so they just get a bunch of luck. So overall, I think the merchant really falls off. Just kind of wanted to highlight that really quick. Now, another character that is kind of like you could use as the wizard as well. The wizard has really good magic, but also the commander line here. The commander and the general. I mean, when I say this, the commander, I'm kind of talking about the general and the, I forgot what this one's name was. I forgot that guy as well. But the commander is good enough, right? He gets a not as much magic, but they are primarily a magic and support class. So they get Fiery Strike, which is a physical fire damage that also inflicts burn, but you also get an AoE burn damage that does, does fire damage, it does burn as well. This is very, very good. It's a little expensive, but it's good. But really, they have two insanely powerful abilities here. Formation of Vigor moves all allies to the front row and increases their attack by 2 ranks for 3 turns. This is very good. This is such a good ability. I highly recommend using this. And the Heartbreak Stratagem negates one enemy's magical repel and physical repel skills. This is something that doesn't come up that much. It comes up more and more as you get later into the game, but this is mostly going to be something that you're going to want in your back pocket, because when an enemy does it, you just want to have this so you can get rid of it, because you don't want to just have a bunch of items. I do have items that I could use, but I started to run low. Other than that, they do have really good signature skills as well, right? Extreme fire damage, decrease their hit and evasion, increase the attack, defense, and hit of all allies for 3 turns, medium almighty damage to all enemies. So this character is good, but the general I think is a little bit better, because you're going to take all the skills over, and you're also going to get the ice attack that increases damage to, increases ice weakness, and then you get the almighty AoE damage. So the thing about this that is like a little bit less strong is that they don't have that many like passives, right? So you're going to want to bring a lot of passives over, where because their kit is like, they don't have much damage diversity, but some of these abilities are so strong. Like you might just want to take the Formation of Vigor and use it on a different character, just level up till you get the skill and this skill and then move on. But I actually do think that the Assault Beacon is a very, very powerful ability. But again, you might want to move these over, but this is one that I just think is super powerful. It's got a great stat spread, does great damage, does great support, has a cool, can do status effects. And in the mid game, I absolutely found this to be like an all-star and a lot of fun. Also, its auto attacks are piercing, I believe, which is a little weird. It is weak to getting beat down with bruiser attacks, but that is what it is. All right, the next one here is we're just going to level up the warrior. We're going to go to the sword master. It might sound boring, and honestly, the warrior is kind of boring. The sword master is kind of boring as well. But I'm telling you, in the mid game, man, if you're just running, if they're not resistant to slash, you just use Raging Edge here, deal heavy physical slash damage to all enemies. Here, let's even use it on Stroll here. Like, it just absolutely wrecks. It does, this is so much damage AoE early on. If they're not resistant to slash, and you have a couple different characters with, you have the slash boost, you have the heat up, you have 2 warriors or 3 warriors, or God forbid 4 warriors. I mean, this is just, it's expensive. It's 38 MP, but this clears almost any encounter at the stage you're getting it. It won't do bosses, but again, when you're fighting bosses, you're not going to want to be using these AoE attacks. You're going to want to be bringing over a different attack. And in fact, I would say you go over to, if you haven't leveled up the Pugilist yet, you just get Power Thrust and then move on. But they also have really good synthesis skills. Medium physical slash damage 4 to 6 times. Heavy damage, I don't think Bamboo Splitter is that good, but severe damage to one enemy, adds a turn icon on a killing blow. This is actually really cool, because if you can give them a weakness, if you use like the sniper here to gain, is it the synthesis here? You could use Mania Bullet to give them a weakness to slash, and then you could use the Peerless Stone Cleaver here to exploit that weakness to slash. So you do severe physical damage, and then if it kills them, not only will it not consume the icons, because it only consumes half icons, but it'll also add an icon to your team. So this is a way of going like icon positive in a lot of ways. So overall, honestly, just big boy hit hard. This is like the opposite of the mage. The mage is good at exploiting weaknesses and thus doing a lot of damage. This character is great at doing damage regardless of what goes on. Tons of great weapon support. Like, you're going to keep getting big, powerful weapons at a consistent rate. They do a lot of damage. Stroll gets a lot of passive strength as you're leveling him up. So it just really, really works out super well. The next is going to be kind of a tie here. It's basically the same thing. I counted these both as mid game, the thief and the assassin. I'd consider the thief early game because you don't get that till like after the second town is done, or until late into the second town. So I didn't really consider the thief to be an early game character, but this is a, do yourself a favor here. Okay. Use steal all the time. I can't tell you the amount of items watch out for spoilers. I can't tell you the amount of items that you can get just from stealing. It's hard to say, but like I have 2 of these legendary abacuses because I stole one and then he dropped one. But I mean, like half of these items you get from stealing enemies, from stealing from enemies. I mean, you get so many insanely good items, so many insanely good, you know, accessories, so many insanely good armor pieces. Stealing is actually busted. You're guaranteed to get the, rare item when you steal. If you don't, you'll either fail to steal or you'll successfully steal the rare item. So very, very good ability. Just make sure you are using this. Outside of steal, I like that he's got like a big balloon head. I think that's kind of fun. The other things that are going to be pretty good, honestly, the rest here is pretty bad on the thief. The thief is not very good in general, but steal is good. But once you get to the assassin, now we're talking. Lurking Nightblade, a medium physical dark attack that also lowers their hit and evasion. This is going to make you miss less. It's going to make them miss more. Missing is one of the most devastating things that could happen to your team, and it is one of the most powerful things that can happen when it happens to them. When they miss and they just miss a bunch of turns, it's absolutely insane. Not to mention, you get Assassinate. Assassinate deals heavy physical dark damage to an enemy and might one-shot kill them. I don't believe this works on bosses. I haven't had a proc on bosses, but there are so many situations where you're just fighting something harder than you should. A red enemy in the overworld or even in the Colosseum, I believe. You could just one-shot things sometimes, and you could restart the battle, try it multiple times until you cheese it out and just get the one-shot. Assassinate is very powerful. Lurking Nightblade is very powerful. Steal is very powerful. Getting extra evasion is fine. The electric dodge is actually better on this character because their only weakness is electricity, but they have increased dodge. They actually reflect ice, which is really cool. And then they also get, at the next level, they'll get even more ability to dodge, but they're also lowering their accuracy, right? So this is a character that's going to help you dodge a lot, which dodging is very powerful, but they need to actually target this character and you need to dodge. The synthesis is less interesting, except God Killer is just like a good version of Assassinate, but it's kind of all in. So if you want to, I mean, again, if I wanted Assassinate to work, I'd be willing to try God Killer as well. Phantom Tracer is an extreme physical attack and it removes buff effects. This is very good. A lot of enemies in the later game, they'll like cry and get extra turn icons. And then they'll use like Heat Razor or Battle Cry and they'll just get 3 stacks of defense, 3 stacks of attack. This will just remove all that for only 12 MP and 2 turn icons, which is totally worth it because the only other option is to use an item basically that removes them all. This is a very good effect. I would absolutely consider using that. And then this also can one-shot hit the target. I wonder if you get the other ability to remove debuffs. There's other abilities that do it. I don't remember them all right now, but absolutely the assassin. The thief is good because of steal, and you have to get through the thief to get to assassin, and assassin's actually kind of nuts. I love the assassin. Finally, we are going to talk about the sniper. So the sniper is really, really good for a couple reasons. Who actually has sniper fully leveled up? You do. So, usable only for the back row, deals heavy damage and decreases their defense. This ability is insane. Now, this is actually a similar ability to the power thrust. However, I don't particularly like the pugilist. I don't think the pugilist is very good. Using your HP to fuel your attacks is actually super dangerous on hard mode. Things just hit really hard. You don't want to have to spend the extra damage you get is offset by the fact that you need to spend extra time healing most of the time, or you're accidentally going to get one shot. I just don't think it's very good, even with all the defenses and stuff. Maybe if you you have like a bunch of dodge and then you play a super dodge build on a ninja, then maybe that's doable. But this ability is super good. 18 MP does. So the gunner is already good. The gunner line is powerful because you get to do your full damage from the back row, which is very, very good. It means you get to do physical damage from the back row without damage fall off. That's just something that's powerful because when you're in the back row, you're taking less damage. So your defense goes up. So this character is weak to slash. You got to really watch out for that. If you don't have something that, if you don't have some reason to like, sorry. If you have any reason to believe the enemy is going to have slash, this is where you might not want to bring the sniper unless you have accessories specifically teched against it. So you do got to watch out for that. But other than that, I'm telling you, being able to use an attack for 18 MP, piercing damage is one of the most powerful damage types. More things are weak to pierce than almost anything else. Maybe it's like fire and pierce are like tied. Tons of shit is weak to pierce, so very powerful. And it lowers their defense, so it's a 2-for-1, and it does heavy damage while you're in the back row. So it's just good ability. The other ones here are a little bit weaker, not incredibly good. In fact, almost nothing else is that insane. But the issue with the sniper is you get less overall stats, right? You get slightly more stats, and then the support you get isn't really that insane. So you can just go for these abilities and then use them on a different character. But I actually do really like the synthesis ability, which means you can't do that. The mania bullet that I talked about before, guarantee you inflict a weakness of a slash, pierce, or strike attack. So if this is really good if they're already weak to pierce, because this will allow you to make them, even though they're weak to pierce, it'll allow you to use this and then allow you to use a slash attack to exploit that weakness. So you're exploiting 2 weaknesses a turn. However, even if they're not weak to pierce, you could have a couple magic users, and then you could have this being your only physical attacker, and you could just use this ability every single turn. Keep them constantly weak to it, because the first time they're not weak to it, the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time you use this, they're going to be weak to it every time. You're doing more damage, you're not using all the turn icons, and it's a bunch of damage. So it's a way to like guarantee weakness exploitation, even if you don't have a normal way to exploit weaknesses. This one also just ignores resistances. It's severe, it's more damage. This is, I think, on average, less good because you're not going to start exploiting weaknesses. The time this is better is if they like don't resist, but they like reflect. If they like reflect pierce damage, then this is the kind of thing you want to be using. But if they're reflecting pierce damage, I tend to just go on the side of like, don't bring a character that does almost all pierce damage, right? I would just switch the character out for something else. This one's pretty cool if you have high luck, like I actually do. Only usable from the back row. Medium physical pierce damage to all enemies 3 to 5 times. Higher luck gives you a higher chance to get to that 5. But yeah, the gunner is really good, mostly because of their back row power, combined with the fact that they have mania bullet and smashing salvo, are just very, very good. But yeah, those are going to be the 5 I'm going to talk about. I'm not really going to put any honorable mentions in. But again, like just to highlight why some weren't mentioned, I guess. The pugilist, I actually don't think it's worth giving up this in the mid game. In the late game, you could build whatever you want. Of course, you could do more advanced crazy builds, but if you're in the mid game, I think giving up this much HP to attack every turn is actually just too weak. You're going to need a way to heal yourself. Yes, the damage is high, but I would just level up to get power thrust. I would level up to get strike boost maybe, and then just kind of move on. The cleric is just kind of like the exact same thing. You just level it up just to get you could just grab the heal spell. You could just grab the revive if you need it. You could grab this. Like, you don't need to be very high to get this. And then if you actually do need it, you could just put it on a different character. There's no real reason to be this character. The healing 1.5 is not very good. Overall, these synthesis skills are very not needed. You almost never need heavy HP recovery. Medium has always been good enough. Reviving all allies is good, but if you're spending, this is not good if you have 1 dead ally. This is only good if you have 2 dead allies. Because if you have 3 dead allies, you can't use it because you can't use 2 turn icons, right? You can't use it if there's only 1 ally alive. So you have to have sorry, if it's just 1 character alive. So you have to have 2 people alive and 2 people dead. That's the only time that it's better than a normal heal spell. And in that situation where 2 are dead, 2 are alive, you might just want to restart the fight and try to avoid that situation in the first place. Maybe. So this is just like, it reads powerful and then it turns out to not be that powerful. And then anything else that I should mention, the knight is just a little unimpressive overall. Not bad, but like a little unimpressive. The magic seeker, I think, is not good. However, once we get to the late game stuff, we'll talk about the soul hacker, which is actually insane. But yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. That is everything. Thank you so much. Purplatypus is Purplatypus. I'll see you on the flip-flops. You guys have a good one. Catch you in the next one. Bye! Turning on the screen.